Shirley here with Jupiter Point of Thales, and I have a 10th house, absolutely not conventional advice for you. I have Uranus in the 10th house, which is both ruled in astrology, so I have an astrological perspective on unusual point of view to your public image and how you're seen in the world, and the view of astrology of that. This is going to be very liberating for a lot of people and very unnerving for others. So, when it comes to public image, you would have to look at your midheaven and you would have to look at your 10th house. That is where people see you publicly. And that whatever you have there affects that. So, if you are like me and you have Uranus in the 10th, you can't really control for that. And those experiences are going to cause you to be more authentically yourself. So this is where your public image, people Uranus in the 10th, unless depending on the aspects to Pluto, but Uranus in the 10th can actually mean sometimes what you see is what you get, or the person will go through, if they try to control for how they look like, they will go through unnerving experiences where essentially they are becoming more authentic and their public appearance will be unusual. Sometimes their reputation will be non-conventional. Okay, so and non-conventional might mean that people suddenly accept you where you wouldn't predict they would, or even radically accept that this is who you are, um, or that you will be considered as this rebel, um, whatnot. At any case, if you're an astrologer, they're going to know astrology can be very remediating, especially for when you go through the branding processes. Where you go, and branding processes not just for self-employed people who go to even a corporation job or any type of job. They want to make sure they're being seen publicly in a certain way. And with Uranus in the 10th house, it's not really possible. Okay, you're gonna have to be yourself. If you're doing your own business, a lot of branding advices are completely incompatible with you, because your ability to tame yourself and adjust to what society standards are for your public representation, it's gonna end up satirical. That's Uranus, until you let it go and until society lets go. And this is one thing where I can begin the conversation. And let's talk about those placements where you have less control of how you look. Okay, one of them even is Neptune. So Uranus midheaven, Uranus 10th house, Neptune 10th house, Neptune midheaven. I happen to have to both. And the Neptune midheaven means you'll have to surrender your reputation in another way. With Neptune, there can be miraculous healing, or you will have some sort of mythical properties that you don't even understand why people look at you as this mythical person. People may have ideation and devaluation around you. You as to the public. Another thing can be midheaven Pisces, by the way. You to the public would be people will have mythical properties, so you could provide people with a miraculous healing without even knowing. And at the same time, people might become codependent on you. People might see you, turn to you to the rescue. Or they might genuinely be cured miraculously by just being exposed to what you do publicly. Okay, that is important. For example, you could be a musician and people read you. I remember when I was writing poetry, I was in a destitute situation with tremendous trauma that I know is actually MK Ultra like trauma, and I had no idea. But I was writing a poem, and a veteran told me I was writing their soul, and they could receive like healing just from reading my poetry. Little did I know that we both went through not similar experiences, but MQ Ultra like experiences. So there was a very scientific basis for this supposed Neptunian relation. But this is how you could be affecting people. On the other way around, people could be very let down by you because you are like an idol to them. And you don't have to be a big name. Okay, I'm not a big name, um, but it means that you're not aware that you might be an idol to people. And this is not because they have pathologies. Okay, I want to make it very clear. Um, it is because there is a certain place of grief, void, relating, and healing that genuinely is happening. And there can be situations where they look at you like a mythical figure and then they see that you're also human. I remember when I was, spreading awareness, recovery of trauma, recovery of sexual boundary violation, and so on and so forth. So the people in the community said, "Oh, I want to be where you at," and so. And then I was in a state of escaping violence myself, and it was in between houses. I had to steal some food, and I was like, "Oh my God, you steal food! This is forbidden! This is this is that." I'm like, "I'm not gonna be hungry." Okay. It was like, "But I'm hungry all the time." It's like, I think this is bad. And so you see how this mythical figure, there's like, oh my God, you managed to give tips that can help curate, and then so on and so forth, just from your own experience. And then it's like, oh, okay, in real life, but you have to do this. Yeah. And I've had my own experiences with people with mid-heaven Pisces, where I was like, but you had to do that, but you had to do that. And so you go through this ideation, and it's like, what was I just seeing? And with Neptune is understanding people are human, and there are more facets to the experiences that we know. So Neptune mid-heaven, first of all, Neptune mid-heaven might be that you are known even after your death. I've had a lot of people that were inspirational figures to me, because 10th house, you might find inspirational figures. You think a 10th house, this would be your father, sometimes your mother, it can be your boss, it can be any authority figure, and thus anyone who is authority on what you do. Okay? And so this is where you find these people. I've had a lot of cases where, oh, the person just recently died, and this is how I got to learn about the person. But people say R.I.P. In Germany, there was the guy that wrote Her Bad. Okay, for the day that died, okay, this is how I find out about him. I was like, oh my God, they were a great artist. Or dead people. And so, but Neptune midheaven can also mean that when you are no longer here, you would be that figure. So it persists even after your death. I have found myself saying to people that, listen, if you kill me because you think that what I know will harm you, knowledge is delivered also after people are dead. So you won't solve the problem. And not only that, if this knowledge, for the way that you use knowledge, and the way that the knowledge is used, it's not like they have to scientifically validate that before they take action on this knowledge. So, okay, if this is why you try to go for me, for my life, or whatever, then that's not a good strategy to tackle this issue. Okay, if you have other problems, perhaps if you did, let's say you did something bad, perhaps we can see for why you did that something bad and how we can tend to that people will not have to do this something bad. That's another thing. But Neptune can also mean that. Okay, simply put, you will be considered a mythical figure in your life, sometimes in your death, and you have to also surrender what you're known by. And that is, I remember I was in 2007, and I was recording myself singing, and I asked people that there was this, oh, how do you know me by, and so on. Somebody wrote black screen, we never see a face. And I was like, oh, Okay, because to me it was like that's my voice. I don't have a studio. I don't have. Okay, that's my voice. Um, so I think when Beyonce addressed, um, yes, she addressed a singer. She said, "Well, usually you would hear about the singer, you would hear about their music, you hear them recording. You wouldn't hear about their private life. You wouldn't hear any of that." And this is a different age. So um, for me, I thought that's my voice. I'm working on one facet that is important, but then what you're known by is that person with the black screen that records themselves singing. Um, and so with Neptune, you'll have to surrender what you are known by. Sometimes there can be lies and deception around your image, and they're not coming necessarily from you. And I'm not saying necessarily smear campaigns. People can misunderstand you very easily with Neptune, because Neptune is coming from so far away reality from yours. If I think about, let's say, Richard Feynman, okay, it's been a great inspirational figure for me. Only when I did Water Expands Upon Cooling, I looked at the synastry and the composite of me and Feynman again, and I saw what? Ascendant 22 degree, midheaven 22 degree. That was like a walking talisman when I was in academia. At the same time, it was targeted individual as well. As the decree of to kill and to be killed, according to deceased or assassinated Nicola Stoyanovich. And only after the last couple of years, okay, for tending to water expands upon cooling and tending to learning so many things about the entire society, because it's all our influencers, decision makers, leaders that are in these secret societies. There's also intelligence and so on and so forth. Then I'm looking back at, let's say, Feynman, and I'm like, oh, but of course. And this is Neptune. Neptune goes with it takes a very long time. It's a slow moving planet, and so people might really have spend a lot of time getting to know you, not necessarily because they try to figure you out, but Neptune has this surrender quality where you sometimes like, but what is this? Why is it? Why does this accompany for me for so long? Well, it's a part of your life journey, and and that's an important part of your life journey. Okay, astrology can be very mediating. Neptune is also the channeling part of astrology, and looking at astrology as well. So if you have a Neptune to your midheaven, first of all, you might be astrologer, you might be channeler, um, and just by that, the way that this entire uh, epistemic standards for empiricism or ontological units. Okay, if you think about how do you know that you know, and what is it the unit of when you look at something, what is that unit that you're looking of? What is it consisting of? It changes across time, as Neptune also changes across time. You think about photons versus photoelectric, or you think about the duality of atom, or you think about the duality of atom, not just the wave and the particle, but also as a spirit and a matter. Okay, those things change across time, and they're doing it non-linearly too. So you are a part of those things, and so your reputation is also changing across time. Neptune rules espionage. Um, for example, people that were thinking they're going to do great things for the country, they were raped, and then they had to seduce one of the rapists to survive, and then it became espionage. These people like Eliza, and then a father thought she was a whore. Okay, so you think about how with Neptune that can be affecting for your public image. If this is so, sometimes you're gonna also have to surrender for your life path. when Uranus was on the 22nd degree, and I did water expands upon cooling, um, that I never thought I would tend to cold cases in my life, even though my Mars is exactly 22 degree to kill and be killed, for the face of Scorpio that is of something that happened in the past. And in the ninth house, looking into, researching into for those things. And in a way that is a teaching, okay, for something that's international as well. There are more facets to that. So I never thought I would do that. With Neptune, the astrology even makes you go through things where this is what you're doing right now. I never thought I would do astrological magic. Never have I ever. Okay? Very. Never have I ever thought I liked astrology, and never have I ever thought I would be doing astrological magic. Okay? Never have I ever thought I would be tending to cold cases and saying the things that nobody, even number one people who didn't say in so many words, in such clarity, on TV. Okay? Or mic on. I'm not on TV. And this is why I was able to say that they couldn't. They say that in other words, but you have to understand these other words. And Neptune can play a part in how much time and what experiences, okay, you go through that you understand something that is so remote from you. Neptune also rules the filmmaking. Okay? And I started my career as screenwriter and filmmaker. So this is sort of writer, screenwriter, and filmmaker. Can also rule acting, music. And so if you know that this rules all these things, you understand that the branding around the Neptunian has to be done with understanding Neptune. Neptune rules psychiatry as well. So you could actually be a good psychiatrist. Okay? And I've known, when I did aromatherapy courses, I've known psychiatrists, and you get to know for the inner psyche. Sometimes a person would be listening as a compensation for not being able to deal with the void. That's very Neptune. And it's not about a pathology. It's about you need that because that void, you need to dissociate it from that void a bit. Okay? And this is important to understand. So Neptune, you could be actually a good psychiatrist. And there's just so many things where you have to surrender. Okay, the reputation of psychiatry, when we see corruption, Neptune, you could be criminal, by the way, drug lord as well. Okay, all these things. I do aromatherapy, but for other people they do drug lords. Okay, they do other things, the prescribed and the non-prescribed drug. Okay, is it safe practice? Okay, those questions that begin even when you do herbs or you do essential oil. Okay, if I give you essential oil that, let's say, removes stagnation, okay, that means that you create change in your life. That means that this change is going to, you need to balance also for the nervous system. I don't know what it will bring. For how long has that been stuck? I can question you, but you naturally, you don't remember everything. If you're treating anything fungal, like a candida or even athlete's foot or something like that, you are tending to something so deep that has so for many years and is also intergenerational. So it's the spirit of, you're tending to the spirit of the times. Sometimes you're even tending to a cult. There are cults around mushrooms. That's like so many things. So those are two planets where you would definitely need to surrender in each a different way for your public reputation. That means that when you go to do your branding, a good knowledge of astrology would assist you to work with that and understanding what you can expect, what you cannot expect from your branding. Okay, you want to think about when Beyonce did the Renaissance and she was singing about Balenciaga. It was before the Balenciaga crisis. Okay, and then for the her husband would be exposed, would be associated with the Jay-Z, and then people say also Beyonce and so on, and she was accused in witchcraft. So there's so many things where you'd have to, and Beyonce has Moon Uranus conjunction with Moon in the 10th house. With a Cancer in the 10th house. Moon ruling Cancer, midheaven in Cancer, I think. Moon Uranus conjunction. So sudden unexpected shifts in her reputation. That's another way in which that can work. And so one is to have that Uranus, let's say, in the 10th. Another thing is to have the ruler of the 10th conjoining the Uranus or conjoining the Neptune. Or a midheaven in Pisces. That can give you that. And this is where the world is going to say what the world is going to say, and you have to radically accept yourself, which is a process in itself. And also you might need to surrender what is public and what is not public. That is something very, very challenging. I cannot even begin to describe to you how challenging it is, particularly with Neptune, but also with Uranus. Okay, you might have to surrender what is public, what is not public. If you have both midheaven in Pisces and Mars in Pisces, it can be even more dramatic, because Mars conjoining midheaven, Mars is the planet of taking action, and midheaven is your reputation. So that means you might have to surrender what actions you can take regarding your reputation. Or something is exposed, and then you have to, or the actions that you have to take in regarding to your reputations, you'd have to surrender them. And I've seen that happening in profound ways, and that of course affects somebody's social reputation, but it's also affecting what they have to do, and how that affects for the actions that they have to take, what they have to do publicly, and that is also a facet of reality. So let's talk about Pluto, because with Pluto in the 10th, or to the midheaven, or ruler of the midheaven to Pluto, or ruler of the 10th to Pluto. First of all, if we talk about 10th house, look at the sign, the ruler, what planets in the 10th house, where is the ruler. So you need to know a little bit of astrology for that. You do. Same with the midheaven. They're not always in the 10th house. And when we talk about Pluto, Pluto usually means, if it's direct, that there is something hidden. You might be literally hidden from the public eye. Or you might be controlling your private life a lot. Okay, hiding your private life. Even Mars or Scorpio can be associated with that. 10th house Scorpio, Mars conjoining the midheaven, and so on. That being said, it's also the planet of crisis. And what that crisis will usually be about is that something that you never addressed comes into the public eye. If your Pluto is retrograde, you might be the antidote to that. You might be taking your power back by being very, very transparent. Okay? Some people would call it overexposing, but you need to know yourself. That's the thing. You need to know your own 10th house. Branding deals and expectations may not apply to you. And that can challenge for, if let's say you work on your business and have a marketing strategy, and you sit with the strategists and they want to do something is not compatible for your chart. You need to understand that. Because if you don't understand that, first of all, you would take the wrong advice, and you would be working with the wrong people, and you would be expecting for your reputation of 10th house to be something it cannot deliver. And this is very important. Also, if you work for a corporation, let's say you let's say you are like me, you have Neptune to the midheaven. So like mythical, so like, oh, Shirley, let's take her as a presenter. that is because of that Neptune, okay, this mythical figure. Okay, when I was in academia, I would always be the person they would get to sit with donors, because I got the funding from the welfare and I love to study and I'm very curious, and I was restored, like I was given a chance to get a degree and I grasped it in both hands and I'm active and so on. They loved it. And that was okay. For that was that's I didn't know for that they were expecting me to be okay with things that I would absolutely not be okay with. But that was I would always be the person who sit with the donors. Okay, that's why when there was the Me Too, I had the privilege that others did not have, and this is super important. Okay, and with that power came also for the understanding that I'm not going to litigate a one person over problem that is actually a cult. I am to this day dealing with the implications of the choices that I make, where I took the road less taken and that made the path the way it is. Careful, I'm not going to abuse my power in that sense, but at the same time, I'm not going to underestimate for the damage that was done. Okay, and so this would be much to the detriment of those who expected me to be this nice story of a person who grasps the opportunity in both hands, and they're this, uh, kind of like rags to riches or something like that. It's like, oh, we gave her the opportunity, and up until that I believed, because it was an opportunity, and I was very happy to be there. I would never meet people that are donors to university, and so on and so forth. But they definitely were not seen coming the fact that I would also not be okay with cult-like practices of the sciences that include sexual boundary violation and other horrid things. And not okay with the cult-like sciences that emanate from these that are masquerading our sciences. So I can be very naive. But this is something that with Neptune to midheaven, you could get caught up in. It's like, hey, let's take this person as a presenter. And then they're not seeing coming that you are really believing for what for them is a story. You're really believing that, and they don't understand that that entails that when you see something that you don't like and you naively believe in that could be changed too. And I still believe that could be changed. Okay, from a Jupiter point of Thales point of view, we can alleviate corruption, we can address corruption, and we can appreciate both chances we are given and change. We do this all the time. So this is another thing where people would have a devaluation. Oh my God, hey, who's that person? Throw him in the gas chamber. Throw them in the I don't know, in the psych ward. Who's that? Oh, that's the person that sat with each and every one of our donors. We don't know if they changed numbers. Okay, easy on the gas. Okay, and then that allowed me to say they changed the entire campaign for university. It was about innovation, and later they changed it for excellency. And I'm like, I haven't seen people talking about excellency since I was like in junior high, and even then it was. If you actually want to be excellent, you have to be creative, which means you try, you fail, you try, you fail, you this, you that. This is good, this is not good. You do things. You do innovation. But you couldn't say it anymore because I said it in my own publicity. I said we are in innovation, so we should be adjoining a couple of departments to tend to this problem, for this perspective, for this perspective, for this perspective, to solve this the problem, okay, without shame, blame. But it means that I exposed the problem, okay. And entire cults of double agents rely on people being raped because they need to forget. They need to have no active memory. Okay, and then when somebody says I have no active memory, they don't want to be tortured and erases the sense, like, oh, this is Pinocchio. No, it's not Pinocchio. He doesn't want to be tortured. Did you make sure that people will not have to go to torture so much so that they genuinely forget what it said? That's your politicians. That's your public figures. Well, no, you didn't even know that, but now that you do, that that can change our perspective, even public image of certain people. That, by the way, have ruler of the midheaven in Pisces. So it's just surrendering for your reputation, but also miraculous healing. And so those are planets that would affect. Now with Pluto, while for you might be hidden from eye of public, or you will have very controlled public image, and that might mean that you will have the power of image, and that can be, you know where to be hidden from the eye. You might even try to manage the image of others, depending on what it is, and to control for the image. That means that around your Pluto square, around hard aspects to your Pluto, or to the planets that conjoin in Pluto, they're going to be crisis. Or if there's hard aspect between Pluto and outer planets, every time that is being aspected, there's some crisis that can manifest in your public image. So what you try to control so much, you need to go through crisis. And with the harmonious aspect, you still go through that crisis, but there is some sort of more access to authenticity around that type of taboo. So being willing to publicly discuss taboos when the time is right, and knowing that you're going to have to tend to that, you're going to have to be authentic about that, is important even with Pluto aspects. Mars to meet heaven. Mars to meet heaven, Mars in the 10th house. You might be a polarizing figure. There can be a lot of conflict, debate, but also could be innovative. People might see you as the great defender. Okay, the one that comes to the rescue. One higher vibration of Mars is that they go to the rescue of the people who can't speak for themselves, who genuinely can't speak for themselves. Okay, it also means that you are a figure where there is debate about, and if you know that, then that means some people might try again to hide, even with Pisces, to hide and so on. You need to be willing to deal with things both hidden and not hidden. That's the warriors tell, the power of a warrior is to tell the truth. Okay, which is very challenging if you have, let's say, Mars in Pisces in the 10th, or next to the midheaven, because this is where you sometimes will have to do espionage or something like that, and they are expected to do another thing. Spying professions are expected to listen 80% and talk 20%, and not answer questions. Warriors are expected to tell the truth 120%. This is to eliminate any energy blockage that they have on the consciousness and their ability to assert themselves and defend themselves. If there was something, you take accountability so that you don't harm your warrior abilities. Now, if we talk about Mars Pisces, for example, you are both a warrior and for intelligence. So communication. I actually seen people pivot from going Marceau to kind of like pouring their heart out. So sometimes you would control the medium in which it's done. Okay, so you would have your own creation where you pour your heart out, and then you have another medium where you control that. But there's also could be an element of surrender to that. So this is how those things can manifest. Now, the planets where you could control more for your image, let's say the signs. So Libra, if Venus is well aspected, you could be. Saturn in the 10th might mean that there is a lot of limitations, or that you are very structural about your public presentation, or some traditional. Let's say Leo in the 10th with Sun well aspected might mean that you wear your heart on your sleeve, and you're known to be vulnerable, but is something that let's just say it's kind of like, this is who I am. Where with Uranus, who you are is evolving. Okay, which is different. Sun, if you have Leo, is more fixed. Gemini, for example, this duality. It's always changing, malleable. Um, Mercury is known to be for trickery, cunningness, lies, but also childlike curiosity, and a kind of the untried and true. So again, if you, let's say, have Mercury in Capricorn, that may be that you said something 30 years ago and people still remember that. Um, but other forms of Mercury, you might have changing branding, changing face. Um, and in essence, Saturn to your 10th house. If your 10th house is Saturn related, Saturn cycle, Saturn maturation, Saturn return, Saturn 7-year cycle is going to affect you a lot, and they're going to be the implications of your actions. Now, to say karma is very, it's not untrue, but you don't know what will the karma be sometimes. Especially now when Saturn, let's say, trining or sextiling Uranus, or when Saturn is squaring Uranus, like we had during the lockdowns in COVID when Saturn was in Aquarius. We had the Saturn-Uranus square, where for people who had Saturn return, it's like you expected to take accountability now, but nobody prepared you for that. That would mean accountability. You thought accountability would mean one thing, now accountability means completely another thing, and that is. I know I had a colleague that had tried to schedule a meeting to tend to their teeth and also astrological reading. There was astrologer, and so Uranus is astrology and the teeth is Saturn, and they had to find their way through doing both of these. So this is another thing that you can think about that can affect your 10th house. Um, let's just say it's true that they say that you can't really control how you are seen. That being said, there are people who did manage to control their image quite well. Sometimes it is the secret of working with the planets themselves. If I take Beyonce, for example, so having 10th house Cancer, with Moon conjoining Uranus, tending to that, okay, bringing that Moon conjoining Uranus, she would try something unconventional every time, and she had the roundabout way, because those were in Scorpio, to control her image, doing the unexpected and learning the depths of controversy. So how controversy serves her. Okay. Of course, then there would be the Uranus opposition. I think Renaissance coincided with the Uranus opposition, and other aspects. Okay, other things that happen in the world, but that is also okay something to keep in mind. That even the people that know to control for the image very well, okay, if what's happening now, let's say with Jay-Z and so on, and Puff Daddy, and for her own career, is also affecting things. So if you are doing anything to like tending to your public image, knowing what are the planets that would make your public image very malleable. Moon in the 10th house. Moon in the 10th house, I've known people, Moon in the 10th house, they were known to be very emotional. Or even can be, just I don't know for sure all the charts, that at the time where your emotions were out, you became a more public. Because that can work the other way around, okay? In a very emotional time, you would think that being emotional or being more emotional is actually kind of like, okay, I don't control my branding, I don't this, I don't that. But actually, if there's, let's say, Moon in the 10th house, or Moon connected with ruler of the 10th or the ruler of the midheaven or midheaven, that might simply mean that you have activated your 10th house. Now you're known. So this is yeah. Now, for people that are known regarding to agenda, activism, and so on, midheaven to 11th house, rulers in 11th house, okay, 10th house and 11th house connected. People who are known as spiritual teachers or internationally known, 9th house would also be connected to the 10th and or to the 11th. The 12th house is very fascinating. My initial series, Spirit of Matter, began with delineating great thinkers and scientists, and I was seeing how the connection between the 12th house and the 9th, and sometimes the 3rd, would come to the public houses. So the 12th house is something that is the dream state, something that is so remote, remote reality. So bringing in new innovative science is actually bringing something from the 12th. And so this is where the 12th house, okay, comes in. 12th house can also mean that you need to surrender your reputation. It can be loss of reputation, or you might become known after you've been in a hospital, after you've been in jail, after you've been in exile. I've even seen people with transits to the 12th house begin to broadcast from their bedrooms. It genuinely happened, okay? So that is unconventional perspective, yes, on the 10th, especially at this time where we've had, cancel culture, shadow bans, and all these things. So if you know the astrology, you can begin to take points of interference into account. You can begin to work with the elements that you need to be working with. For example, I know I'm an astrologer. 10th house, Uranus, Neptune to midheaven. Okay. For example, attempts to make me do things that I don't want to do, especially erotically or in terms of drugs or stuff like that. It's like, Neptune also means astrology. Neptune also means the tincture. Neptune also means channeling. Neptune also means a creative art. Okay, so this is where I'm going to take Neptune to this aspect, or I'm going to take Uranus to for the astrology, and this is something that if you know astrology, you have sets of things that those planets rule. So you have sets of things that you can do, or you can do publicly. When it comes to these things, you still have to surrender what are those things and what happens. But this is important. If you sit in with your branding crew and you think of how am I going to design my public image, knowing the astrology of your 10th house, your midheaven, the rulers, the planets, and what they rule might be very beneficial. As a natal 10th house astrologer, I think that it's possible for me to offer you readings. What will be currency, what would be conditions, difficult for me to tell. It's also causing a big, gigantic mess when it comes to having to run this properly. So I don't come out with this offer today, not in a waning moon and so on. And I think that good knowledge of astrology is something that would assist you. Yes, it would assist you regardless of going to a reading. So perhaps learning astrology yourself. As for like receiving compensation for like my channel and stuff like that, yeah, I need to think it through. My previous PayPal has been confiscated. And it's not been active, but it's been confiscated. So I will need to yes, think about those things. And astrology also means rebellion. Okay. Another thing, if I go back to astrology, anything Uranus, if you have Uranus in the 10th house, Uranus readings that are to do with with where Uranus is in your chart, or where Uranus is transiting. That can also be something that you could, if you're an astrologer, be offering. This is um, where people have Uranus. This is teaching of this is Nicholas Stoyanovich, and this is he did that with Placidus housing. When people have Uranus, that's usually where they would turn to an astrologer. So sometimes, but also perfections. If you go to Hellenistic astrology, perfected years can also symbolize what topic is coming up in their lives. So you want to connect that with where Uranus is natally for you, and where Uranus is transiting is going to change the readings that you give. Um, or if you give reading, if you do other things, that's very important. So that's already an astrologer's insight. Uranus tends to be unexpected, so you may surprise yourself. Also, the 10th house can have to do with career and legacy. For me, just when I thought that my legacy, that I'm retired, and if I don't have to worry about my legacy because just it's laden for what I did, it wasn't even beginning yet. and and just to say, I was like, well, I'm retired. I'm not thinking legacy so much. It's just I happen to do things that are like, my God, I really want that knowledge to be um, for humanity to have access to this knowledge in future generations. So yes, thank you for watching.